I'll remember to go around that.
I want to catch one of those squirrels that are here.
I want to jump and catch one of the snapping turtles like the swamp man.
Oh, yeah, same.
And then he just does this on the top of the water.
I want to go see
And then he sees bubbles and he just swims down.
I want to get in there and see if there's any.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start class on that note.
No, this is way more important.
Yes, I'm sure it is. You can talk about it after class. Actually, when I was at UNL, some students started a squirrel protection club. It was very interesting.
Pretty tasty.
See, but all the squirrels that we had at UNL, like, you walk up to them and they're just like, "What? What are you walking here?"
Oh, so they're just a bunch of Nazis.
They were a bunch of New Yorker squirrels. They didn't have problems standing in lines. They like, huh? Terrible. Okay. So last week we discussed the scientific method. We talked about a short example about how the scientific method could be useful. Today we're going to be talking about professional interviews. Why would somebody do a professional interview?
So we can go pro.
Because you always want to go pro. Where would you see a professional interview happening? You would see some on the news, yes. Yes, news, it's news. Where else would you find a professional interview? Maybe, huh? Okay, some other places where interviews are done are really, you will do an interview anywhere you need to sign a contract. Okay? Let's say you are, okay, that example won't. Let's say 15 years in the future, you're looking for a babysitter. Okay? You don't go on Craigslist, find the first babysitter. Look, it's He-Man. I'm going to go ahead and hire this person. He's highly rated. You don't do that without meeting the person in person. Okay? A lot of today's business is done virtually, particularly in the era of COVID. It's a lot harder to have an actual interview process. But people still value interviews. Interviews, you may have an interview when you're looking at contractors, people who are going to work on your property. You may have interviews when you're hiring somebody to work for you or work under you. You may be having interviews when you're talking to, maybe your company has X number of dollars in research. And you now have 3 or 4 people who are vying for that money because they have great ideas. And they submit the ideas to you, you review them, and then you sit down and you interview them. Ultimately, the goal of an interview is to better direct how a contract would be formed. Okay, or in case of news, and it's just to transfer information. Okay? Because if you're going to sign a contract with somebody, it has to be very specific for them. I'm not just going to say, all right, well, I'm spending $250 for somebody to watch my child. That's it. Go watch them. Maybe what they're doing is they're watching your child through binoculars through the window. In which case, then that stalker you have, make a great babysitter. Maybe your idea of watching the child involves like every 5 minutes hand them a juice box. you want to have a little bit of control over what happens. And the person who you ultimately end up signing a contract with is going to, they're going to have to cater to your needs. And you're going to have to cater to their expertise, regardless of who that person is. In a professional interview, what you're doing is you're exchanging that information so that they can better address how you are going to be brought in. Okay? I had to do a professional interview to get hired at Down. You will all have to do professional interviews to get jobs, unless you know a guy, and then he just lets you in. But even then, you'll probably still have to do an interview eventually, unless you plan on working at one place for the rest of your life, which seems kind of boring. Okay? So, the goal of this, better direct potential contracts, understand more, transfer information. What kind of information are they wanting to get out of you in an interview? What?
Depends on what you're interviewing for.
Skills, how good are you at certain things,
Character.
job. Any restrictions, like weightlifting restrictions in certain places?
I'm gonna do like 350 right bicep. Only like 200 left bicep.
Credit card info.
No, I mean, you have to spend a lot of weekends leveling up your one hand.
I'll have you know this right bicep's pretty powerful.
Sun's out, why aren't the guns out?
Huh?
Sun's out.
That's true. I'm gonna show off my farmer's tan. Oh, if I can roll this up. My sleeves are too tight. I should just tear them off right here in class. Just. Yeah, no, we're not doing that. As much as I do like my farmer's tan. And dying. The thing about an interview is that when you do an interview, they've already looked at some information you've given them. Okay? You don't just get suddenly called up and like, hey, I don't really know you, but I want just do an interview with me, okay? Okay? Yeah, that doesn't happen. That's called a telephone survey. Okay? Anybody who's doing a telephone survey for you probably is not working on having a potential contract. Otherwise, they're really bad. I needed somebody to babysit. Do you live in my area? That'd be terrible.
That's safe.
Yeah. Yep. Just grabbing random phone numbers, just dialing it out of the phone book. So they have to know some information about you already. They have to know basic information. Okay. In today's world, we have the ability to exchange information very quickly, almost too quickly. This is one of the reasons why you can get a news source that gives you information before they even know it's accurate. And then you have news sources that also have to retract that information because it was submitted before it was known, and giant litigation issues and all of those fun things. We have the ability to transfer information at the snap of a finger. And we can send as much information as we want. When you go to apply for a job, you will probably be submitting your resume online. That gives them an electronic copy of your resume. Is anybody familiar with a resume? Yeah. Mostly. We're going to be talking a little bit more about resumes on Friday. But when you submit your resume, what you're doing is you're telling them, here's my name, here's my contact information, here's my schooling, here's my work experience, here's my skills, here's my volunteer experience, here's all the organizations I'm involved in, here's the awards I've won. You just go on and on and on and on about bulleted points about who you are and your accomplishments. It's like a one-page summary of who you are. Okay? So, assuming that you're applying for a job, or that you're doing it, well, usually you send a resume out with pretty much any kind of an interview, really, you send out a resume. I've had to send out resumes for stuff I've applied for here at Doan, which is kind of dumb because they already know me. But At the same time, that's what it is. You have to give them some baseline of information for what can they know about you. So, they already know something about you. Okay, usually that involves resume exchange. You may know something about them because you'll get their resume. Maybe not. Maybe you'll have to just scour their website and learn more about them. But now they've got your resume. What more do they need to know that's not on your resume?
Well, we want to see what personally know your work ethic. We want to see how you react to certain questions and situations.
They want to know how professional you are. Yes. What else do they want to know? What?
Why they should hire you?
Your qualifications, which a lot of that is given already in your resume, but they need to verify that. If you walk in and you said, you know, I graduated from MIT 20 years ago, and you're 3 years old, like there's something wrong here. Also, any 3-year-old that can write a resume, hire them. I don't care if they say they had 20 years experience. How did you do this?
They were reincarnated, but somehow contained all the numbers.
Somehow. And still type pretty amazingly. So here, what they're really looking for is your level of professionalism and your qualifications. Why is professionalism important?
So you're not goofing around at work all day?
What's that?
So you're not goofing around at work all day?
So then,
So you're actually doing your work?
you're actually doing work. First of all, you're capable of handling a professional environment. They don't get up here and suddenly start spouting off weird things about colonoscopies or cosmetics. Apparently they did a terrible job of reviewing my professionalism. Although they get student reviews, they should have fired me years ago. I kid. But when they're looking for your professionalism, what they're looking to see is if you can handle a work environment. Different jobs have different work environments. Okay, you go work in academia, this is significantly, substantially different than working at an industry. Okay, me sitting here in front of you, yes, there are things that I have to do for this job that I would never be asked to do in industry. But at the same time, there are things in industry that would ask me to do stuff that I will never have to do here. Okay? I don't have to work nights. I don't have to. I can rearrange my schedule so that I don't have to work nights. That's great, because I don't like working at nights. In industry, you don't always get that choice. You're on a rush job. Sometimes you're putting in 60 hours a week. Okay? I've told you all that I like Elon Musk. Elon Musk has a rather famous quote that said, nothing great ever gets accomplished on 40 hours a week. What that means is he expects his employees to put in more than just an average work week to get stuff done. If you're the type of person who shows up at 8, takes an hour lunch, leaves at 5 every day, you would not fit in well at SpaceX or Tesla. The kind of employees they want are the kind of employees who get started on a task, stay there till 8 o'clock at night, and show up at 8 o'clock in the morning the next morning. Then maybe only work to 5. That's what they want. If you're not that kind of a worker, you wouldn't fit into that work environment. That is an element of your professionalism in relationship to that company's ethics. Every company has different standards that they expect for their employees. Some companies, the CEOs and the administration will greatly value diversity. And if you're even remotely not the kind of person who works well with people who disagree with you or who aren't your culture, they will not hire you. Some companies don't care anything about that. And if you're a terrible employee or you have any reason of why they should dislike you, they will fire you. This is, unfortunately, you have some rather recent stories that have come out of Google and Uber about female employees who were harassed by their superiors. They went to HR. They mentioned to HR that this was happening to them. And HR turned around and wrist slapped the people. In fact, in some cases, didn't even notify the people who had complaints against them that their complaints existed. Now some of that is because the corporate environment is, well, the worth of this employee is far greater than the worth of the employee who's filing the complaint. If this person leaves, the company loses very little. And I hope none of you ever have to work in an environment like that, because that's certainly extraordinarily unethical on every level. Unless you're a valued employee. Terrible. I still hope you never have to work in a corporate environment like that. Because if you work with people who do not value their employees, the company as a whole is just a monster. And I hate that.
Every payday, which was every other 2 weeks, he was consistently changing how much I would get paid for each day I came into work.
Yeah.
It's like one day I come in and he paid me like $6 an hour, and maybe the next day if I worked longer, it would be like $4 an hour.
That's interesting. That's also unethical. But some companies, what they want to do when they hire you is they want to make sure that you can handle that work environment. Companies like Google, companies like Uber, who do demand that level of rigor, they will only hire people who are absolutely driven. You want to go work for a company like that, you have to work hard. You have to. And you have to be a little bit cutthroat. You can't be the nice individual who respects everyone. You have to be the kind of person who steps on everyone's feet to get stuff done. That's a corporate environment. That is what they value for professionalism. So everyone does have a different opinion of what professionalism is. And everybody wants different qualifications. If you have 30 years of coding experience, you've built multiple websites, you've designed the interfaces for electronic currency transfer, you developed Bitcoin, and then you go to apply for a job where they're now designing rocket fuselages, you have no qualifications. They're not looking for a coder, they're looking for somebody who understands physics. They're looking for somebody who understands material choices and engineering. Doesn't matter how good at coding it is, it doesn't matter how great your resume is. You have to have the qualifications. Those same qualifications would land you at a top spot, pretty much any tech company. But you could not apply to be a rocket scientist because it's the wrong qualifications. Every job has different professionalism standards. Every job has different qualifications. Okay? This is based on corporate culture. This is based on job title. So, when they go to look for you professionally, there are still some things that everyone is looking for in professionalism. Doesn't matter what it is. Every company is looking for some base level of professionalism. Okay, does anybody know what is the most basic things about professionalism that you have to show somebody? You had mentioned one earlier. I think you had mentioned one earlier.
No face tats.
See, but even then, like, if you just intimidate people enough.
For you,
Just
talking about
dress
professionalism,
nice.
or to being respectful to respect and appropriate manner.
Appropriate appearance. That was from Duncan. Respect. What else? Yeah, Brett. Yes, although that I'm going to say with hesitation. I love teaching handshakes in this class. This is the class that I designed to teach handshakes. I can't teach it this year. I'm so mad.
Depends on the setting. If you're dropping a record album, then probably some gold-plated teeth.
I'm saying that everybody's looking for. Although everybody is kind of looking for that person who has gold-plated teeth, right? Nah, but the problem with handshakes is right now you are discouraged from giving handshakes, and if you even try to give a handshake, you may show yourself to not care about the hygiene of others. This is it's a very strange situation COVID is given. You could salute. Saluting is fine.
What if we just jump? What if we punch him? That's just. That's it.
I like that. I like that. That was good. However, that might be very threatening to a 60-year-old guy who's trying to hire you. Like, yeah! Okay, what else? What else is every interviewer going to be looking for as far as professionalism goes? Language choices. You can write whatever you want on a resume, but that does not reflect how you speak. If every other word you say is an F word, that's better. But if you cannot speak a coherent, cogent sentence without cursing, you're going to have a little bit of a trouble in a professional environment, because you go to present in front of somebody. My dad had a good friend who was a college professor. He was an engineer at UNL. And my dad's a pastor. And one day he was gone because my grandpa died. So this college professor went and gave a sermon for church. And happened to drop several words that most people in that church probably had never heard in that environment before. It was a very interesting experience, so to speak, which is, language is important, especially if you work in an environment where people have to hang on your words. It was a fun sermon from what I heard. I wasn't there. I was actually at my grandpa's funeral. But this is something that's important, okay? People will judge you based on how you talk. We said last Friday, this is all about appearances. Language is an appearance. It's an appearance of not only your communication capabilities, but also your intelligence. People who communicate better are viewed as more intelligent than people who do not. Doesn't matter who you are. Remember, every great teacher you've ever had that was a great orator, if they're a good speaker by themselves, you view them as smarter, you trust them more, you see them as a more competent person, just because they have lingual control. Which kind of sucks, because it just means, if you're not blessed with those social skills, which, to be frank, very few of us are. That's why we're in engineering and science.
I thought your name was Kale.
What?
You said to be frank.
I am frank. I alternate between personalities. So, what we have to be cognizant of, though, is that everything you do has an appearance to it. Okay? And I'm going to go ahead and add to this list a few other things. Probably the most important thing is your confidence.
What's confidence?
I got this.
It says
Get out.
Thank you! Is that better?
Yeah.
Thank you. Also, thank you for having my back. After how many times I've kicked you out of class, it's nice to know you're at the ready to do it for me. It's terrible. So, what are signs of confidence?
Sit up straight.
Eye contact, posture. What else?
How do you walk into the room?
That's posture.
Okay, well, that works too.
Posture and gait kind of go hand in hand.
Where do you look?
Appearance.
Yep.
Yeah, if your clothing is wrinkled or if you smell, you do not have that kind of confidence. That's some, then that is confidence, my friend.
Thomas, just so you know, you smell awful. What does confidence smell like?
Confidence smells like winning. Tiger blood.
Not losing.
To quote,
Tigers every time you take an interview? I think they're endangered.
winning.
It's a federal crime.
Well, you're gonna have to take that one up with the. Who was that guy? He was the guy he was hopped up on crack.
Joe Exotic.
No, this is before Joe Exotics. He was on 2.5 Men. Charlie Sheen, yes, he's the Tiger's Blood winning guy. But these are really important. What does eye contact show about confidence? Well, first of all, what is confidence?
Believe in yourself.
It's believing in yourself. It is trusting yourself. Okay? If you go to give an interview with somebody, or you go to even say something, let's say, I'm going to say, Avery, how much does it cost to buy a gallon of milk?
I'd say probably about $2.50.
That was a very confident answer. Very nicely done. Okay, is he right? Sometimes. Sometimes. I had to buy milk for $4 a gallon a couple weeks ago. Huh?
Depends on where you go.
It does depend on where you go. Depends on the supply and demand at the time, but you give a very confident answer. You are very believable. Does it matter if you're right? Well, yes. But ultimately, it also matters to me on whether or not you feel like you're right. There may not be one right answer to that question. I know there's not one right answer. Okay?
Apparently confidence smells like Irish Spring.
I use Irish Spring.
You smell like confidence.
I do.
Yes.
I should hand out free Irish Spring to all of you. Here's confidence. Terrible. Dang it, now you got me all distracted. Right, so confidence. The thing about confidence, the thing about being confident in your answers is people are more likely to believe you if you believe you. If you don't even believe you, why should they? Okay.
I never believe myself, but I'm still confident about it.
If you never believe yourself, then you're feigning confidence, and that's still good. The appearance of confidence is what matters. Okay, so if I would have asked Avery, what is the price of milk? And Avery would have come back with, oh, I don't know, maybe like $3. Like, my first instinct is, I need to go ask somebody else, because you clearly don't know. Instead, you gave a very strong answer. You didn't know, but you gave a strong answer, and my first instinct is, oh, he probably knows what he's talking about. Okay, great. That's the difference between confidence. A confident answer is more easily believed than a non-confident answer. Okay? So having confidence makes you believable. It gives you ethos to your argument. If you go back to the 3 Greek elements of a good argument, it gives you ethos, just being confident. Makes you believable. It makes you trustworthy. Confident people have an easier time making decisions. We talked about problem solving. People who are confident make better decisions. Because even if they make a bad decision, they're willing to take the consequences. And they're willing to make another decision. They're willing to do it faster. They don't struggle with self-doubt as much. Confidence is huge. And confidence is something we all struggle with. I stand up in front of you every class and I talk on and on about stuff. I don't have the world's greatest confidence. I don't. I feign it.
Very well done.
Thank you. You know, that really means a lot to me. Duncan over here is he's my hype man. But having confidence, or at least having the appearance of confidence, makes you more believable. It makes what you say a lot better received. So, aiming for confidence, having the eye contact. If you can look somebody in the eye when you say something, they're less likely to think you're lying to them. Okay? And you can look somebody in the eye. There are fewer reasons as to why they should ignore you. Why are you laughing? You're ruining everything. Confidence is shot. Okay, having good posture. If I go and sit on a chair, try to do this on camera. If I go and sit on a chair and I look like this, okay, are you going to believe what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're too scared to tell me this.
Hey guys, this is as close to the fetal position as I can get before I fall off of this stool.
I think you can get closer.
I'd fall off!
Lift your legs up and lean back a little bit. Yeah. About balance. That also gets you further away from us. So
Oh.
you look a little more straight.
I don't think I can. I'm not going to fall over in class. Thank you.
Demonstrate what not to do.
Don't do this. But posture does say a lot. Okay, psychologically speaking, we do a lot of nonverbal communication. Okay, every time you yawn, you're giving nonverbal communication.
Hey, I can yawn right now. You go in there.
Exactly. Take advantage of that. Can't even see. But every time you yawn, every time you look at your watch, you're giving nonverbal communication. Every time you stare at your arm for a while, it's a different kind of nonverbal communication. I do that often.
When I check my watch, that's not there.
There's a clock in the back of the room, okay? I check that often, and I'm sending you a message. But nonverbal communication, I have heard that it is estimated that up to 70% of the communication we send between people in person is nonverbal. Okay? Most of you haven't said, well, a lot of you haven't, okay, maybe half of you haven't said a word today in class yet. But you have said a lot to me with your nonverbal communication. 100% of what you're saying is nonverbal. For even those of you who have spoken a lot. You're still sending, what? You'll notice right there I communicated with my eyes. But even for those of you who have spoken a lot, you still say more with nonverbal communication. You say more with body language. You say more with how you speak rather than what you speak. The text alone does not do your words and actions justice. Nonverbal communications is huge. When you do posture is a huge part of your nonverbal communication. It shows your level of comfort. It shows what you're thinking about. It shows what you're focusing on. Okay? Staring at you, you could tell what I was focusing on. Because my posture indicated this is where I'm focusing my attention. Okay, walking around like this, I'm exhausted. I have no energy. Okay, walking around like this, I probably have some issues with my back. Huh?
Probably makes you look like a complete dog.
Yeah, probably. That's probably why I should do that more often then.
Give it a good old arrangement.
I don't think I can. They have that down to an art. Okay, and lastly, your appearance. The way that you look. All of this is appearance. Because you can't ever tell anybody who you really are. But you can give the appearance of being something. And your words back up how you look. That matters. You want to look good. You want to look professional. You want to look like you have self-control. You want to look like you are somebody who has the ability to engage with a professional audience. Okay? Sometimes individuality matters. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes if you can show that you can dress up just like everybody else, such that your clothing is not a distraction, sometimes that's all they're looking for. Okay? All right. So that's professionalism. When we go to talk about qualifications, they're looking in the interview process to verify a number of things. What are your qualifications for a job? Your education? Experience? I was going to write education.
Participation in group events.
What?
So like growing following up on how much you participated with other people shows how well.
Involvement. Gotcha. Okay. Like activities, organizations, those types of things. Okay?
How much you can fake being qualified.
I don't even think I can write that up there.
How good you are at faking knowing what you know. Are you good at acting? Yes, bullshit. There we go. Can you bullshit?
There you go. Okay. A lot of times modern interviews will now incorporate pieces in problem solving, where they will throw you out a question and they will say, you're dealing with this situation, what do you do? And you have to sit down and you have to talk through what you would do in that type of a situation. Okay? They may have you perform a certain task. We're not going to do that in this class because that's awful. But they may. They may ask you a question that you wouldn't expect to see how you would respond. I've heard some people have been asked, if you had a superpower, what would that be? Well, what does that have to do with any of this? Well, it's showing problem solving and thinking on your feet. How do you answer questions you did not prepare for? It's a modern interview tactic. Okay? A lot of this stuff is covered on your resume. But if you come in there and you say, I've got a PhD from Stanford in biomedical engineering, and they want to hear you talk about what you know about biomedical engineering, and you can't say anything, they're gonna question that. Okay? Thomas is telling me, hey, I built a nuclear reactor in my backyard. And I go there and I'm like, oh, how many therms are you generating? And you're like, what's that? What's a therm? I'm going to be a little bit skeptical about that claim.
Either that or I'm going to be a little bit worried that if he doesn't know what that is,
It's going to melt down.
totally freaking.
Right.
Oh.
Yep. Full Chernobyl. There you go. So when you do your interviews on Wednesday, I will have you all dress up. That will be a part of this. There are a number of questions that you're going to have to answer about your partner. If your partner is not here, I'll make sure that you all get in a group. Maybe a 3-person group where you interview each other that way. But everybody's going to have to do an interview. Everybody's going to have to be interviewed because you need to see what both sides are. I'm going to have some questions up on the board that are going to be written that everybody's going to have to answer. I will not be doing a live stream on Wednesday. But you'll have to answer those questions, ask them to each other, and your ultimate goal is to determine these two things. How professional are they? And how qualified are they? Okay? The position that you're all interviewing for is the position of a researcher as a part of this UBLAC team. Okay? You're basically interviewing your colleagues to see if your ideologies match and if your visions match and if you're qualified to teach. So all of you are qualified. You just have to express how you're qualified. What kind of experiences have you done? What kind of schooling have you done? Have you taken any classes in this material? Do you understand anything? Have you ever worked with this type of material before?
What if they ask us what their pay is?
If they ask you what the pay is,
What about health benefits?
you'll have to ask your supervisor.
About your 401k?
I think I'm the only one who works on a research team.
Okay.
What's your W-2?
W-2s are handled at the end of the year.
Okay, we're fine.
Yeah, we're good. We're good for at least a little bit. Any other questions about the interviews that are going to happen next class?
I'm going to dress my best.
Good.
Or at least try to.
So we're getting asked questions about our partner.
You're asking questions to your partner about them, and then they will ask you questions about you. So it's like you're the interviewer, and then you're the interviewee.
What kind of education do you have?
Any other questions?